The Kurdish and the Palestinian people share one fate: genocide and occupation by a powerful Western regime backed by the American empire and the global capitalist collective. Today we dive into the history of armed resistance against said occupation and the Kurdish-Palestinian anti-imperialist struggle, which in both cases has been hijacked by the enemies of the Kurdish and the Palestinian people, making use of traitors and corrupt rulers. The Kurds are descendants of the Persians, specifically the Old Persians, the Medes people. The Kurds also consider themselves the descendants of the Persian king Kai Khosrow. After remaining part of several Islamic empires throughout the medieval period, they became part of the Persian Safavid Empire, which pushed out the Arabs out of the region that used to dominate it. The Safavid royal dynasty is actually Kurdish. Firoz Shah Zarin Kolar, one of the founders of the dynasty, is of Kurdish origin. The Ottoman Turkic Islamic imperialists defeated and annexed the Safavid Empire. Although throughout this period, the Persian nobles of the area would significantly worsen the conditions of life for the Kurdish population, particularly the Yazidis, resulting in a rebellion against the increased taxes and the banning of Yazidi culture. The Kurds established their own emirate, independent from the Persians, due to regular pogroms and discrimination in the later period. The Emirate of Bradost was established. The emirate was founded by the Shia Kurdish Hassan Vahids. At the Battle of Dimdim, the Persians forcefully annexed the emirate, putting an end to early Kurdish independence. Hundreds of thousands of Kurds were deported to Khorasan province by the Safavid regime. The Khorasan Kurds would use the Kurmanji language originating in the Empire of Bradost. During the civil war, after the fall of the Safavid Empire, a Kurdish general of the Zand tribe, Karim Khan, managed to take power over the Afsharid Empire. The country would flourish during Karim Khan's reign. A strong resurgence of arts would take place and international ties were strengthened. He reconquered the Caucasus, which the Safavids lost during Karim Khan, even managed to defeat the Ottomans and push them out of the region, dealing a decisive blow to Ottoman Turkic Islamic imperialism. Ultimately, the Kurdish dynasty would be defeated and replaced by the Persian Qajar dynasty. Sultan Selim I defeated the Safavids and annexed Kurdistan and Armenia. The Kurdish historian Idris Biltisi became the governor of the region under the Ottoman occupation. He gave the Kurds regional autonomy, which they removed later. Bedir Khan Bek, a local Kurdish leader, initiated a revolt against the Ottomans, which was crushed. 4,000 Kurdish civilians were killed, and Bedir was forced into exile. A Kurdish landowner and regional head, Sheikh Ubaydullah, became one of the first Kurdish nationalists who demanded independence from the Ottomans. This revolt was also suppressed, leaving 5,000 Kurds dead. Sultan Abdul Hamid II aimed to integrate Kurds into Turkish society, having them loyally fight for the Ottomans in World War I. Following the rise of reactionary fascism, ethnic multinationalism, and hate against the Kurds in Turkey, which rose after World War I, against both Armenians and Kurds by the Turkish fascist movement, the Young Turks, hundreds of thousands were deported from the cities of Erzurum, Bitlis by the Turkish fascists who viewed them as subhuman bandits. 300,000 Kurds were forced to move from Urfa to Kahramanmaraş. Also, Kurds were forced to leave big cities such as Konya. 700,000 Kurds were displaced by the Turkish imperialist colonial fascists. 350,000 died. Innocent civilians killed, displaced, raped, and tortured for no reason other than a Turkish urge for expansion, power, and elimination of a non-Turkish race. The Turkish fascist leader Mustafa Kemal Atatürk prevented Kurdish or Assyrian self-determination and massacred both Armenians and Kurds. The Western powers wanted to take advantage of the desperate Kurds to weaken Atatürk and help them form the Republic of Ararat. Reza Shah Pahlavi, who came to power thanks to a Western-backed coup in Iran, also brutally suppressed the popular Kurdish farmer rebellion, led by Kurdish tribesman and chieftain Tsimko Shikak. Qazi Muhammad was one of the Kurdish Marxists who vowed to fight for Kurdish self-determination and independence. Based on the theory of Marx and Lenin, after his father participated in the farmers' revolt by Tsimko Shikak and was brutally executed by the Iranian government, he joined the Kurdish Marxist organization Komala Jian-i Kurd, which was working together with the Soviet Union to establish a Kurdish state. He soon became the leader of the group. Thanks to Soviet and Azeri intervention, a Kurdish state was established. For the first time in history, a democratic Kurdish independent state was established, the Republic of Mahabad. He founded the Marxist-Leninist Kurdish Party, which until this day fights for Kurdish self-determination, and the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan. Mustafa Barzani became the leader of the local army of the Republic. Jafar Pishvari, Azeri Marxist, signed a peace treaty with the Kurds, and both agreed to respect Kurdish and Azeri minorities on their territory. After the Soviets withdrew, the fascist Iranian state invaded the region and Qazi Muhammad was executed. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, a kingdom of Kurdistan was established on the former Ottoman territory. Mahmoud Barzanji was declared the king. Due to the British terror bombings and Turkish invasion, the empire fell and became part of Turkey. Kurds were offered a small autonomous region in Iraq by Baathists, but of course they rejected it, demanding all ethnically Kurdish territories. In the 1950s, Kurds were partially able to integrate into Turkish society. Chapter 2: Kurdish Resistance. The Kurdish and in the 1950s, Kurds were partially able to integrate with Turkish society, as it was almost impossible for them to become independent from the Turkish occupiers. The 1960s saw a coup d'etat against the government of Turkey, and NATO and CIA led a Western-supported coup aimed at making Turkey a Western puppet state. Adnan Menderes, a social democratic leader who condemned Atatürk and was pro-Kurdish, was executed as a result of the coup, which was led by the fascist and founder of the Grey Wolf nationalist group Alparslan Türkes, who was trained by NATO and Western intelligence. With Turkey becoming more and more of a fascist nationalist Western puppet state, Kurdish nationalists became more Marxist and opposed the Kurdish feudal tribalism. Following the coup, the fascist Turkish state cracked down on proletarian organizations and imposed bourgeois dictatorship. Abdullah Öcalan, the leader of the Kurdish proletarian guerrilla resistance against the genocide and occupation of the Kurdish people, are faced with from the Kurds. He is a Marxist-Leninist proletarian leader, and he served under the Turkish armed forces. He participated in meetings of the Kurdish left-wing student group Revolutionary Cultural Eastern Hearts, which was banned after the coup. The Kurdish Marxist-Leninist organization Revolutionary Youth Federation of Turkey, which Öcalan joined, was infiltrated by the CIA and was banned by the fascist Turkish government. He participated in a rally condemning the brutal killing of the Kurdish Marxist-Leninist Mahir Kajan by the Turkish army. During this march, he was arrested by the fascist government of Turkey. 7 months he was held captive by the fascist state in prison. Together with Maslum Dogan Mehmet Mari, he published a booklet describing his aims for revolution in the Kurdish territories. They wanted to liberate the Kurdish territories from Turkish occupation. They prepared for armed revolution against the fascist occupiers in Turkish Kurdistan. After Öcalan made trips through the cities and spoke about to the oppressed Kurdish masses, he was able to gain many supporters. The 1980s saw another fascist NATO-supported coup in Turkey, even making government-sponsored terror and Kurdish and genocide far worse. He founded the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, as a Kurdish proletarian resistance organization and fled to Syria during the fascist uprising in Turkey. Thanks to Syrian anti-imperialist efforts, the PKK was able to set up multiple training camps in Lebanon. Mahsun Korkmaz led the PKK's first military campaign against the Turkish occupiers in Iru, occupied Kurdistan. The first Turkish occupation soldiers were killed by the PKK. According to a Turkish propaganda, also civilians were killed during this attack, which is false. Also, police officers and soldiers were targeted and killed by the resistance in Semdilin, occupied Kurdistan. Resistance fighters also raided a police station in Sirit. Kurdish resistance guerrillas managed to kill 3 of the fascist presidential guards in Yüksekovka. 8 Turkish soldiers were also killed in the town of Kurcha by the resistance. Up to 70 Turkish soldiers were killed during this first wave of raids by the PKK. It was very successful and very powerful militarily. Öcalan managed to unite the Kurdish resistance, uniting with the resistance in Iraq. He met with the leader of Iraqi Kurdistan, Masoud Barzani. He also met with Jalal Talabani, a Kurdish activist in Iraq. Thanks to a social democratic moderate liberal Turgut Özal coming to power in Turkey, negotiations and a ceasefire took place. Many PKK members were arrested by the fascist Turkish state and sent to Diyarbakir prison, where they were held under gruesome conditions. Many, such as Mazlum Dogan, committed suicide in jail. The PKK and the Kurdistan Communities Union, the Kurdistan Free Women's Unit, the Patriotic Revolutionary Youth Movement, the Yazidi Resistance Unit, Sinjar Resistance Units, Hezbollah, Syria and Ba'athist Iraq launched a guerrilla war against Kurdish American proxies in Kurdistan and Kurdish Iraq. When Abd al-Karim Qasimi, an Iraqi nationalist, was overthrown in a coup by the CIA infiltrated the KDP to be used in a coup against Iraqi nationalist leaders, making it and several other groups, such as the Peshmerga, Western proxies in the process. Guerrilla forces to be used against actual anti-imperialist forces and liberal pro-American Jalal Talabani, Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, which has been an American-Israeli proxy to weaken Iraq and the Kurdish resistance. The PKK under Öcalan for that reason started a guerrilla war against these American proxies in Iraq. Kurdistan, attacking the forces of the KDP, but also the largest and most powerful American-controlled Kurdish proxy, the Peshmerga. Ibrahim Ahmed, a Kurdish liberalist closely working together with Turkey and the CIA, is the founder of the KDP and the Peshmerga and the Western proxy Social Democratic pseudo-socialist Komala Party. He founded by Abdullah Muhtadi, which has been acting as a Western terrorist proxy against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, a socialist group working in favor of Kurdish self-determination after it became known that the KDP and the Peshmerga were working together with the Western-supported fascist Saddam Hussein. The Turkish government, the Iranian government at the time, also worked together with the PDK, allowing it to launch attacks against the PUK from Iranian territory. The CIA, as it was planning to assassinate Hussein, organized a ceasefire between the PDK and the PUK. Upon learning that the US was not going to assassinate Saddam Hussein, leaving the PUK to do it alone, PUK carried out its offensive against the fascist Iraqi regime. They managed to destroy 3 Iraqi divisions and capture 5,000 Iraqi soldiers. The corrupt KDP allowed Iraqi government to establish smuggling routes within Kurdish territories. Jalal Talabani managed to reach an alliance with the Islamic Republic against the corrupt Western proxies. The PUK called Iran to launch an anti-terrorist operation against the KDP. After the corrupt KDP invited Saddam for an intervention, he took the opportunity and launched a 30,000 men strong invasion of the Kurdish territories. against the PUK-controlled town of Erbil. Khosrat Rasul Ali defended the city, which he together with Kirkuk liberated from the Saddam government during the Raparin. After a long battle in which 2,000 Iraqi soldiers were killed, the Iraqis captured the city and executed 700 PUK Peshmerga prisoners of war brutally. The Americans, using Saddam's invasion of the western puppet Kuwait as an excuse, invaded Iraq, slaughtered the population, stole the country's resources, and had Saddam executed. The Iraqis installed the KDP in Erbil and left, but thanks to the support of the Islamic Republic, the city of Suramanja could be liberated from the KDP, and the PKK finally intervened, backing the PUK and attacking the KDP and other Western proxy factions in the region. The Turkish government allied themselves with the KDP and used the PKK presence as an excuse for invasion of the region. 50,000 Turkish soldiers illegally entered Iraq at the time. At the same time, KDP attempted to capture Erbil, which was controlled by the PKK. They faced heavy casualties and weren't able to capture the city. The PKK continued targeting KDP leaders using target assassinations. 200 PKK and 700 KDP had been killed when the Turks withdrew, despite exaggerated numbers by the Turkish propaganda. Up to 400 Turkish soldiers were killed. Later, Turkish forces again attacked PUK and PKK in Iraq. When the US forced the KDP to agree to a ceasefire with the PKK and the PUK. Both PUK and PDK in the end cucked out to the US and signed the Washington Agreement. The PUK betraying the PKK, forcing it to leave Iraqi Kurdistan. Despite propaganda and popular conceptions, the PKK continued being a Leninist organization after the power was centralized during the Third Congress. Öcalan purged spies and agents which worked together with the PUK, the KDP, or even the CIA. Mossad. Up to 30 KDP agents who had connections to Mossad were executed. Also, 30 PUK members who infiltrated PKK during PUK betraying the PKK were executed upon Öcalan's orders. Also, many defectors were killed abroad. On August 6, 1992, Turkey launched large airstrikes against the Kurdish population in Hakruk region of Iraqi Kurdistan. Up to 3,200 Turkish soldiers and 4,000 PKK soldiers were killed. This was one of the most effective Turkish attacks against the PKK. Due to the incompetence of the Faruk Bozkır, who was in charge of the Hakruk camps, this was a major failure of the Kurdish resistance. The PKK was forced to leave Hakruk region. In 1993, PKK agreed to a ceasefire with Turkey. After the setback at Hakruk, the fascist Süleyman Demirel refused to negotiate with the PKK. The Turkish forces broke the ceasefire when they attacked Kurdish civilians and PKK in Kulp, the PKK launching a major ambush against the Turkish occupiers in response, killing 50 soldiers and capturing 22 PKK leaders. Sasik Demir led the operation, blocking logistical roads. Fake reports of PKK executing civilians were produced by Western sources. In reality, a bus with armed and uniformed Turkish soldiers was ambushed by the PKK, and the soldiers were executed. Another group of soldiers was taken POV. Civilians were let go. Süleyman Demirel, together with NATO, formulated the Castle Plan to use violent ethnic cleansing and the help of the fascist Grey Wolves to defeat the PKK. Süleyman Demirel had several Turkish politicians in favor of peace murdered. The Turkish military started using methods of ethnic cleansing, destroying up to 3,000 Kurdish villages and engaging in deforestation and mass executions of pro-PKK civilians. Up to 2 million Kurds were displaced, up to 20,000 civilians and 2,000 PKK members were killed during this campaign. In 1995, in exchange for Turkey stopping its terror campaign, the PKK agreed on a ceasefire. Turkey again broke the ceasefire and bombed Kurds in Iraqi Kurdistan and attempted to kill Öcalan. in 1999, when PKK withdrew from Iraqi Kurdistan to Kandil Mountains because Öcalan had been captured by the Turkish security forces and had been imprisoned. There was another ceasefire. The PKK, due to the capture of Öcalan, rebranded into Kongragel, but despite this, Kongragel being peacefully, the Turks continued to escalate attacks. The Kongragel ceasefire led to the formation of the terrorist group, the Kurdistan Freedom Hawks, who saw that the PKK had accepted its defeat after the capture of Öcalan and thought that the PKK was not able to continue resistance and who wanted to kill Turkish civilians. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks committed many crimes. The ceasefire was triggered by the capture of Öcalan. After the PKK reformed into Kadik and then Kongragel, PKK reappeared in 2003 together with other groups and the Kurdish Freedom Hawks. The Turkish jihadist Hezbollah, founded by the UAE and Saudi Arabia, carried out the Kusadi minibus bombing against civilians, which was blamed on the PKK, while it was actually done by the Kurdish Freedom Hawks, the TAK. The Turkish fascist state in 2006 launched large attacks. The PKK launched large attacks against the occupiers at Diyarbakir. The TAK launched a major bombing campaign as well, coordinating with the PKK, leaving 1,800 Turkish soldiers dead. PKK condemned the Kurdistan Freedom Hawks bombings due to the targeting of civilians in some instances. Kani Yilmaz, one of the founding members of the Kurdistan Freedom Hawks who initiated the rebellion during the Kongragel ceasefire, was assassinated in a joint effort by the PKK because he organized the infiltration of jihadists of the PKK and recruited jihadists for the Kurdish cause. In 2007, Arab jihadists inside of the Kurdistan Freedom Hawks launched another attack against civilians, which caused major internal conflict within the organization. The PKK used the bombings to recruit Kurdistan Freedom Hawks members back to the PKK. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks carried out suicide bombings after one in Tensheli. Turkish forces again invaded Iraq and justified it by alleging PKK presence. The PKK carried out large raids against Turkish forces in Gaza mountains, killing up to 150 soldiers and 15 commandos. The PKK raided and overrun a Turkish occupation post in Daglicia, Yüksekova region. 10 PKK and 100 Turkish fighters were killed. The Turks responded with airstrikes against all Kurdish territories, again resulting in minor PKK and large civilian casualties. After PKK shot down multiple Turkish Air Force fighter jets in Iraqi Kurdistan, Turkey launched Operation Sun. This operation started with large airstrikes against Iraqi civilians. After this, the Turkish forces, after the capture of Öcalan, Cemil Bayik, his right-hand man, led the PKK and managed to recover from the attack by the American proxies thanks to him. Jalal Talabani, the PUK scumbag, agreed to a Turkish incursion into Iraqi Kurdistan and kicked out to the pan-Ottoman imperialist dictator Erdogan. The US also agreed to a Turkish intervention in the Kurdish territories. 10,000 occupiers crossed into Iraqi Kurdistan. Up to 200 were killed upon crossing the border. The Peshmerga assisted the Turks and did not engage them. PKK shot down multiple jets and helicopters. The left-wing Iraqi Kurdish group Kurdistan Free Life Party assisted the PKK. The Turks were defeated. 5,000 of their soldiers killed, and they were forced to withdraw from Iraqi Kurdistan. Despite the PKK agreeing to a ceasefire, the Erdogan government started mass arrests of Kurdish politicians, such as politicians of the Democratic Society Party. Erdogan also wanted to rename Kurdish villages into Turkish to further engage in ethnic cleansing. Cemi Bayik's right-hand man Celal Baskale was in command of an operation against the Erdogan government, ambushing Turkish occupiers at Residia, killing up to 90 Turkish fascists. In 2010, after the Turks again escalated raids and airstrikes against the PKK officially ended the ceasefire. At Tuceli, Turks were ambushed, 50 soldiers were killed. The PKK hit a Turkish occupation base in East Kerdum with missiles. 200 soldiers and high-ranking generals were killed. The PKK intensified clashes in Hakkari region, ambushing Turkish forces. Murat Karayilyan again offered the Turks peace. The PKK declared another Ramadan ceasefire. After the Turks broke the ceasefire, causing major Kurdish protests, which were suppressed by the Turkish fascist state, the PKK launched major ambushes of Turkish military groups from Kurdish Iraq. The PGAK started to engage in terrorism against the Islamic Republic, which was condemned by the PKK in ending with an Iranian offensive against the PGAK. Following the Western proxy war against Bashar al-Assad in Syria, the Kurdish anti-imperialist groups working together with the PKK emerged in Syria, the PYD, fighting against the Western-controlled jihadist Syrian opposition. The PYD and the YPG in Turkey. Those jihadists Turkey armed those jihadists to prevent a Kurdish independent region in Syria. Turkey armed ISIS and other terrorist groups. The PKK launched another offensive in Hakkari region, killing 200 soldiers. 30 PKK were killed by the attack. Erdogan stated that he was negotiating with the jailed Öcalan. During these negotiations, Turkish agents murdered Kurdish activists in Paris. After Öcalan called for peace, the PKK ended its guerrilla activities and withdrew from Turkey to Iraqi Kurdistan. The Kurds engaged in mass protests which were suppressed by the Turkish fascist state after the Turkish fascist siege of Kobane, which supported the Islamic State and killed Kurds and Syrians at Kobane. IS terrorists allied themselves with the Turkish fascists and killed Kurdish leftists after Kurds continued to protest Turkish terrorism in Syria. The PKK in 2016, using Russian manpads, shot down up to 50 Turkish helicopters. Turkey continued genocide of Kurds in Syria in Rojava and Afrin region, using its terrorist allies against the autonomous region of Rojava, which was achieved by the PKK unit PYD and the PKK unit YPG. So let's talk about Israel's genocide of the Palestinians, which in many ways is the same as the Turkish genocide of the Kurds. Next week I will upload a video extensively going over the history of Palestine and the history of the ongoing Palestinian genocide. So stay tuned.
Ero dengi Kurdistani Irana.